Go ahead and get started. First, I want to say welcome to everyone. Whether you're the students we just admitted, their families, their friends, the folks that just supported them throughout the application process. You all are very wonderful people, and you're very much appreciated. And congratulations to everyone who was admitted. It was a very strong applicant pool. And you all stood out in many different ways across experiences and across kind of academic credentials as well. And we're very hopeful that you all will join us in the fall. My name is Robert Ellis. I'm an associate director of undergraduate admission at Northwestern. I'm also an alum. I graduated in 2012 from the School of Education and Social Policy. And I got my master's degree from CESP in 2019. I'm originally from the south suburbs of Chicago. So I grew up about an hour south of campus. While I was on campus, I was involved in many different things, primarily focused around cultural life on campus. Some of my favorite memories at Northwestern really don't have anything to do with the organized events I was a part of. My favorite story to tell is that, in Chicago, it snows, obviously. And I once picked up a snowball and I tossed it at a young woman's back. She turned around, it hit her in the face. And that's when I learned that it was an ice ball. And I've never felt so bad in my life. And I promise you all that, but you don't have to worry because now we're married. And so that's my favorite Northwestern story. But joining us today, the man of the hour here is President Morton Schapiro. He's been the university president for over a decade. He has a deep commitment to students, and he's a leading economics scholar who regularly teaches undergrads. And so I'd like to, thank you, Morty, for taking the time to come and join our students here and take the time to congratulate and welcome the class of 2026 and their families, and to address some of the thoughtful questions that folks have submitted. And so, I'll let Morty share any initial thoughts before diving into your questions.
Well, Robert, that story scared the heck out of me. I didn't know where it was going. I was kind of hoping it would end up with being a partner, a life partner, but I thought it was going to lawsuit, or I didn't know where it was going. You're going to get tossed out of Northwestern. I didn't realize that. But you're not recommending that as a way to meet a partner, that you throw ice in the person's face, are you? I want to get this straight before we start here. Oh, okay. But I'm relieved by that. But that is quite the story, and you told it well. So Robert pointed out that we had a lot of applicants, almost 53,000 applicants for first-year spots. We're not alone in being super selective, but the regular admissions turned out to be an admit rate of under 5% overall, counting early, under 7%. So congratulations, as Robert said. If you could get in here, I'm sure you can go anywhere. So, those of you who applied early, you're coming. Those of you who applied regular, you're probably making really tough decisions. I actually spent an hour with somebody I knew today who was trying to decide between us and two other incredible schools. And at the end of the day, I said, you can't go wrong. I'll tell you the reasons why Robert and I love Northwestern, but, these are other fantastic internationally renowned schools. So, I know people, the anxiety, of course, Robert, of getting into a place like Northwestern is intense. It shouldn't be a source of anxiety to decide where to go. I'm not saying you should flip a coin, but, I could basically guarantee wherever you go, you're going to love it. For most of you on this call, it's going to be here. That's what history suggests. And there's a lot of good reasons for it. But some of the rest of you are not going to come here. You're going to go to another great school, and you're going to love it there too. So that's the secret. So I offer my congratulations to the students and their families and their friends. And I also want to acknowledge this is a very special time of the year. You probably know that with the lunar calendar for Islam and for Judaism, the overlap between Holy Week for the Christians, Ramadan, and Pesach, Passover, only happens every 33 years. And it's happening now. So for those of you of the Islamic faith, Ramadan Mubarak. For those of you who are Christians, may you have a blessed Good Friday tomorrow and Easter on Sunday. And for those of you who share my faith, Chag Sameach, may you have a wonderful Pesach. We're having Seder. I was just down there handing out the Haggadot and figuring out the Kiddush cups and everything. And pre-COVID, we would have actually 72 each night. Trust me, I don't cook, but 72 each night. Even with the pandemic coming to an end, but still a little problematic, we will have 110 over Friday and Saturday night, 55 a night. So we can't wait. And I also understand, I heard today that for some people who are Hindu, there's a celebration for them too, among others. So this is a special time of the year. It should be a time we're full of hope and satisfaction and prayer. So I hope, I from the bottom of my heart, wish you, Robert, and everybody else, regardless of your faith, enjoy these holy times.
So thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead. We'll get started here. You all submitted some great questions. So we did the best that we could to kind of create some thematic questions around the questions that were submitted. And so we want to acknowledge that this is a remarkable cohort of admitted students from all over the world. And we just want to know, as they weigh what are surely some outstanding options for college, Morty, what do you consider some of the most distinctive opportunities available to undergraduates at Northwestern right now? And then what developments or initiatives can the class of 2026 expect to benefit from in the years to come?
Well, Robert, as you know, I mean, you're from Chicago, so you know Chicago. I'm from the New York area. My wife's from LA. We've been living here in Evanston for 13 wonderful years. I really like Chicago. You know, Midwest was always flyover. No offense, Robert, for us. We're going back and forth. We lived in Massachusetts. I lived in DC, lived in New York, New Jersey, Long Island, lived in California, as I said. So, you know, I was like, wow, what's about the Midwest? And we'd always heard that kind of people were nice here, you know, a little civility and humility and mutual respect. And I love the coast, but I wouldn't necessarily say those adjectives always, you know, reflect life on the coast. But and we love life in the coast, but we love the Midwest. So one of the things, Robert, we have is this proximity to Chicago. You know, there are a lot of great cities in the country or the world, and this is one of them. But I love not being in Chicago. I love Evanston. Everywhere I've ever lived. It's safe to say our family has loved Evanston more than anywhere else. And it's because it's a diverse town. It's a beautiful town. We're right on the water. It has everything. So that's one thing, you know, that's unusual. We're blessed with a great location.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case. And, you know, some people say, well, Chicago is a little cold. Well, you know, there's an old Norwegian saying that translates, I think, roughly into, there's no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothing. So, you know, dress right, and, you know, you can enjoy the 4 seasons here. So, I mean, I think that's great. You know, I think the Midwestern values are great. And I think that the quarter system where you can take, you know, any course that you're interested in, and not just have 32 tickets for, you know, educational enlightenment, but as many as 48. I think that's the difference. But Robert, you know, what I like most about it is, you know, the reason I teach the undergrads. You know, I tell undergrads, they're so intellectually engaged. They work really hard with the quarter system, but they have a intellectual humility here and eagerness to learn. And it's just a beautiful community. So, you know, I never say, oh, you're crazy to turn us down and go somewhere else. You know, in some cases, you might be better off somewhere else. But think long and hard. If you're one of the few we admitted, if you're not going to come here, better make sure that, you know, you're going to another school that is going to serve your needs as well as we can. So, you know, location, culture, peer effects with other students. I think we have it all. And I love big time sports. I just love big time sports. And to be there, you know, in the Big Ten is a dream come true, you know, and every day playing, you know, it's sort of you're playing Ohio State, and it's David and Goliath almost, but we hold our own, right? And Michigan, and Penn State, Nebraska, it's just so much fun to be Northwestern, the one private among the 14 of us in the Big Ten, and this great school spirit. I don't know, Robert, how many of the basketball games you go to. My favorite sport's women's basketball, where our superstar was drafted 7th this week, Veronica Burton, in the WNBA draft. We had Nia Coffey 4 years ago, drafted 5th. So, first round picks. And, you get to see these people, and it's not sort of, you see them at a distance, right? You see them in your classes, you see them in the dorms. We had 2 first round picks, number 13 in football and number 26 in football last year, Rashawn Slater and Greg Newsome. And, so you're seeing the top athletes in the world, and they're wearing the N, go Cats. And it's just so much fun. And, particularly the men's basketball and football, just packed the student section. They go crazy, win or lose. And we win a lot. So I like that too. I don't apologize for playing big time sports. I'm really proud that Northwestern's one of the very few private research universities that, is playing sports at the absolute highest level and winning at it.
Oh yeah, I love that about Northwestern. It's, you have this the dichotomy of very highly intellectual place, but also just like a very strong sports culture. A culture of having fun just in general, enjoying themselves, enjoying what they're learning, and enjoying their classmates as well. So
that's a great way to put it, Robert. And we won the national championship in field hockey this year. We're ranked number 3 in women's lacrosse. We're ranked now, I think, number 8 in softball. This past week, I watched lacrosse. I watched women's tennis. I watched baseball, which is on this big win streak now too. And it's so much fun, so, and in addition to that, as you know, we have this incredible music school, Beaton School of Music. These people, they're going in, they could be at Juilliard or any conservatory, and they graduate into the Chicago Symphony and the LA Philharmonic and New York Philharmonic, and you get to see them as classmates for these free concerts. I go many, many concerts, from the gospel choir to the jazz band, Victor Goines' great band, to the symphony, to the non-Beaton major Symphonia, where they're econ majors and journalists, and they're playing their hearts out and doing a really good job. So I love that. And I love theater, musical theater and other theater. And, it's straight to Broadway into LA from here. So when I tell the students, I say, are you going to the theater performances? Are you going to the athletic events? Are you going to the concerts? They're all free. Go. These are superstars, and many of them do. And I love, and many townspeople also, Robert, go as well as faculty and staff and visiting alumni. So we sort of have it all here at Northwestern, and just proud to be part of it for the past 13 years.
A very wonderful place. And I, reflecting on, some of that about the kind of diversity of folks' interests, we got a lot of questions, about academic flexibility, changing majors or schools, combining disciplines in the quarter system. Kind of, rather than addressing these individually, can you reflect more broadly on Northwestern's distinctive intellectual and academic culture?
Yeah, I hesitate to use the word distinctive. I've been at some really good places also. Began my career teaching at Penn, and a lot of years at SC, and 20 years at Williams College. But I've also, I'm very well aware of what they do at Dartmouth and at Duke and at Princeton. And I don't know, it's distinctive, but, we provide a great undergraduate education. And most schools are on the semester, we're on the quarter. And that allows you to avail yourself of anything that you want to do. And if you find a subject and a professor you like, you keep taking that subject and that professor. And if it's not what you really like, it ends sooner. It's not like sitting there and, throwing away one out of 32 possibilities of a course, when it could be maybe 1 out of 48. So I love that. I think that is a little different. There are other schools that are on the quarter, but very few of them left. And I think that's an advantage. It lends itself, Robert, as you know, to an intellectual intensity that sometimes the students have to get their arms around. But, they got in here against all the odds. They can certainly get through. And, virtually everybody who gets in gets out. Usually in 4 years, some actually, I teach econ, but I have a lot of econ math doubles. A lot of them get out even before the end of their 4th year. So it's not one of these places where you're expected to stay 4.5 or 5 years. 4 years is ample opportunity to get through. And again, many of them graduate. I don't know if you did, Robert, many of them graduate a quarter early. So, I like the academic culture. I referred to that before. And people work really hard, but they also have a lot of fun. And there's a cooperation here too, that not this hyper competitiveness that some high schools, unfortunately, I think foster, public and private. I think when they get here, it's not a place where it's cool to say, hey, I got 1570 on the SATs and 35 on the ACTs. How many APs did you get 4s and 5s? That's not, you don't do that in the Midwest. It's like, and when I teach, I have a lot of study groups and a lot of cooperation. And I think the students learn from each other in a very supportive way.
Absolutely. I reflect back on when I graduated. I could have graduated a quarter early. But one of the things that I was really excited about Northwestern was being able to take more classes. In my last quarter, I ended up taking, it was an African studies class, Islam in Africa. And just like randomly decided, I'm going to take this class. And I loved it. So it was one of those, like, I could have been done, I was going to work the rest of my life, and that wasn't very intriguing to me at 21. But, I had that last 10 weeks to just kind of like hang out and go to class and do, that last little bit of learning in the classroom. Because I, as a first generation college student, it didn't even occur to me that I needed to go to graduate school. And so that's like a whole different thing. But we had a lot of great questions about transition to college, speaking of being first generation. Can you share your thoughts on advising resources and support for new undergrads, particularly this year as they emerge from a high school experience that was kind of upended by the pandemic?
Yeah, what I'd say, being brutally honest, as I always am, Robert, as you know, transition's tough. I think people underestimate the difficulty of that transition. Many times, you're rooming with somebody who you might have met on Facebook, but it's a different reality when you're actually trying to room with them. Everybody's trying to look at each other and who's going to do this and who's going to do that, and you got to get into all these different clubs, and then the academic pressures of the quarter system. It's just really hard. We try to do whatever we can. We try to do all the support systems, from bridge programs to the health center and psychological, do everything that all of our peer institutions do. And I think we do a very good job at that, but that doesn't change the fact it's a tough transition, and parents and other loved ones have to remember that. You don't have to, this isn't the kind of place where you have to call up your child and say, or other loved one and say, are you going to classes? It's more like, how you feeling? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating well? Are you sleeping enough? And it's just, it's the comfort. I always tell the parents, just tell the kids how much you love them and how proud you are of them, and never stop doing that. And don't say, oh, your GPA was only this. How are you going to get into Yale Law? Don't add to the pressures. These are kids who survive the pressures of high school life, and compounded, as you said, Robert, by the global pandemic. If there's ever time to kind of relax a little and feel good about yourself, and in some case rebuild your psychological well-being and the confidence that you have in yourself, it should be during college, right? It should be, and that's why I love the fact you stayed the extra quarter, you took the quarter. I wish high school allowed more of that. That's why I tell kids who get in early, and all 3 of my kids got into their schools early. I always told them at the end, don't take that AP, just take something you really love, just relax a little, sleep in on it. And, that's always the way I feel as a parent, but I feel that way as an educator. I mean, this is not the rat race that you sometimes graduate into. And, don't worry about getting a job at Goldman or McKinsey or getting into, Stanford Medical. Just try, it'll happen, and just sort of rebuild that confidence, rebuild a love of learning, Robert. I believe in lifelong learning. I'm always trying to learn. And I think that, that's one of the educational outcomes. People ask me all the time, educational outcomes, should be a love and a respect for diversity and inclusion. It should be aesthetic sensibilities being developed. It should be quantitative adeptness, my field. But it should also be feeling good about yourself and knowing how to have a good time and enjoy the successes. And don't just focus on the inevitable failures of life. I think that's the problem. I keep telling the students that. I keep telling myself that, frankly, too. I was just honored back at Williams, where I'd been president. It was a big dinner at the president's house. And I gave a college-wide lecture, and it went pretty well. I saw a lot of people I hadn't seen in 13 years. And my wife said, Mort, what do you always say? You should feel good. They really welcomed you back. And I said, you're right. I do feel good. But, I don't know about you, Robert, many people, they just suffer all of the injustices and failures, and they don't take time to say, I did something really good. I'm okay. Feel good about yourself. And I hope that's one of the outcomes we instill in our undergrads when they graduate and they leave our campuses.
Yeah, it's Northwestern taught me to just kind of appreciate even the smallest of victories.
Great.
And I think, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to do well. And when you're surrounded by a bunch of people who did really well, kind of their whole lives, a small mistake kind of feels devastating. But going back to those kind of Midwestern kind of culture that we have, students are super, supportive. And so, yeah, you did poorly, but like, these are the ways that we can help you. And I'll never forget taking Chem 101 and me being frustrated visibly studying and a bunch of people deciding that they were going to help. I never got it. I'm an admissions counselor now, but it just wasn't for me. And I also think about, like, my mom didn't know kind of like how to help, right? Mm-hmm. And so I guess the next kind of follow-up question then is like, maybe you have some advice for parents and guardians about how they can contribute to a successful journey for their students at Northwestern. You talked a little bit about like being kind and telling them that they love their kids, but anything else you think?
Well, I think if once the kids are feeling okay and feeling settled, it does help to get out of your comfort zone. So if you spend high school in the library or the equivalent, go to paint yourself purple and go to an athletic event. And if you're studying engineering or like you started pre-med, go to a concert, right? And you know what it is. Every day we have some famous Nobel Prize winner, Pulitzer Prize winner, politician on campus. Go, it's all free, So, as a parent, what I always ask my kids were, what's your friend group? Does it look like high school? Does it look like you? Or is it somebody from people from very different backgrounds? And, I wouldn't like hit them over the head with it, but I would try to stress, sort of this, it shouldn't be simply an extension of high school. It should be something very different. And, it's going to be the Northwestern community you would be entering is probably going to be the most diverse community you will ever live in your life. And by diverse, I mean by race, by ethnicity, by religion, by national origin, and even by ideology. So take advantage of that, get out of your, I think people these days, Robert, they live in echo chambers. All they want to hear is that there are words repeated off the walls and never challenged. Well, that's a problem. And I think, I love Gen Z. I've been teaching 43 consecutive years, teaching undergrads. I've taught a lot of generations, but Gen Z is great. They care about the world, but there's a vulnerability there that, comes from, the very difficult circumstances from, being born in the wake of 9/11 to when they're first aware of the world, and a little after there's the Great Recession. And then there's, the chaos and political system of late. And then COVID, just what they needed, a global pandemic to screw up high school for them, It's just so difficult for this generation. I think we need to put our arms around them. And I think as parents, we need to tell them we love them, but, they have to take, control of their lives, and they have to be as open as they can be and as understanding as they can be. But it's a generation that I really believe is going to, we say in Hebrew, tikkun olam, heal the world, repair the world. And I think they're going to make changes in environmental concerns and in many concerns that the boomers couldn't do, and the other generations, including the millennials, couldn't do. But Gen Z is the future of this world. And I have tremendous optimism because of them.
Absolutely. So we got a number of questions that touched on themes of student safety, wellness, and belonging. I don't know if you remember this. I probably not, but you and I, we first met. I was in the Black House. I think you were walking around with the executive director at the time. I was asleep on the couch. I had my jacket over my face, and she woke me up to meet you. And once I realized that I was meeting the president of the university, I was like, I don't know if you should have woke me up. I think we should have moved beyond this. But I think about that as like, I always felt safe at Northwestern. And I sought out places where, I felt like I belonged. And so, can you maybe discuss some established resources along with kind of any initiatives underway in the areas of safety, wellness, and belonging? And then, short of a crystal ball, maybe you can touch on any COVID considerations that may come into play for our incoming students.
Well, first of all, Robert, I didn't realize that was you. That was 11 years ago, my friend. It was 11 years ago. And you were a little sleepy. I didn't realize that was you, and I apologize.
No.
I didn't wake you up, but anyway, I was there, so it's nice. It's a small world. I do remember that. I'm proud, by the way, how we completely redid Black House, and I'm proud that we have a lot of places where I've always believed, Robert, that there should be places where you're not overtly challenged. Where you feel. I'm an observant Jew. So I go to synagogue every Friday night and every Saturday morning, and that's my space. I put on my talit, Saturday morning, and it's I don't worry about people coming up to me and, screaming at me about this or that, or, and it gives me the confidence to engage with the broader world, which is full of difficult discussions, right? So, having places like Hillel or Shield Catholic Center or, Black House and on and on and on, it's not a place to hide away from the world. It's just a place where you can revel and by being surrounded by people who want you to succeed. And you could say what you want and no one's going to call you on it for being stupid. Nobody's going to say, why is it? It's like, and that gives you the confidence to go out into the broader community. So we have a lot of them. I know there are some institutions that say, we don't do that, but I don't think it's true. I think everybody has those spaces and everybody needs them. And, and people who don't get that, I think they should take stock of their own lives. It drives me nuts when people who live in gated communities and restricted country clubs start lecturing me about why we have houses on campus for people by religion and by ethnicity and other markers of them. It's like, you have them, you don't realize it. Everybody should have them, but not to hide away, but to be energized to go out and confront all the challenges of the world. So yeah, we have everything you have. No different. We have our health center and psychological services and advising, it's really good. Is it the best in the world compared to the other great schools? No, but it's no worse. It's good. And we're always looking for ideas to make it even better. But the best support system, family and friends. And you know what? That's not just while you're an undergrad, that's for your whole life. When I happen to have a very tough day today and a family problem, but it was my other family members who, were there around, literally putting their arms around me and made it a day that gives me hope for tomorrow. So, institutions can do it, but at the end of it, and they should do it, Robert, but at the end of the day, it's family and friends who, keep us sane and keep us ready to face the day tomorrow.
Absolutely. And, we talk a lot about, the people you surround yourself with and kind of how that contributes to your overall well-being. And so it's important to choose good friends, and it's important to, keep in touch with your family. I realized this morning that I hadn't called my mom in 2 weeks, and I'm realizing now I still haven't called her. And so I should probably do that when we're done with this conversation. So
please do it. Please do it. And tell her I say hi. The president says hi, and I'm sorry I woke you up 11 years ago. But she's making you really proud and making your alma mater really proud. And I think, family's tricky. It's really tricky, and it takes some work. But friendship, I can tell you, Robert, is somebody who's 68 years old and, blessed with a lot of friends, but I've lost some friends over the years because I didn't work on it. They marry somebody and you don't particularly like the partner, the kids don't like each other, whatever it is, or they're far flung anywhere in the world. And, there's the old saying that, friends are the family you get to choose.
Yeah.
But it's also the family that's easiest to lose because you got to work on it. And I always say this at graduation. I just shot a graduation video just this afternoon for one of our campuses that I can't go to. Coming up in a couple of weeks. And I always say that, you have to be grateful, but, work at it, keep your family together and really keep your friends together, because there's so many things that get in the way of ongoing friendship. But you need your friends, you need them when you have a bad day like I had today, but also when you have a good day like I had 2 days ago. You want to celebrate with your friends, and you want to have your arms around them and their arms around you when you have a trying day.
Absolutely. So kind of going along the theme of friends and family, thinking about like opportunities to gain mentorship at Northwestern from faculty. We had several questions about undergrads' access to faculty and research opportunities specifically. Can you talk about faculty investment in student success along with Northwestern's commitment to undergraduate research?
Well, when they recruited me for this job 13 years ago, when I was president, I mentioned at Williams College at the time, I was intrigued about going to one of the world's great research universities. This year, I think we're going to get about $1 billion in sponsored research to keep our labs going. And the work we're doing on glioblastoma and ALS and depression, it's just mind-boggling what we do. That's 36% of our entire budget comes to keep our labs going. So we're a great research university, but how do undergrads fit in? Well, one thing that's been a major initiative for me over the last 13 years has been providing opportunities, not just in the STEM fields, but in all the fields. And I think that our faculty realize that part of their job is not just to teach in the classroom, but to teach outside the classroom. And a lot of times that means in the labs or in, study rooms or wherever. And, we fund it. So a lot of people have sponsored research, they have an NIH grant, and they might have some money to not just their postdocs. And we have 1,100 postdocs, not just our PhD students, 3,300 PhD students, but we have 800 undergrads, 8,000 undergrads. And you want to have them, give them opportunities in research too. So we fund it. So if you have a grant, great, God bless, use your grant. If not, we pay for it. I'll be going shortly to the research presentations. We have a book, and I'm sure you can make available to parents, which is research output from undergrads. They do presentations, the poster sessions, and I go from one to one. It's so much fun. And I am blown away by the brilliance of our undergrads. So we're a research university at the top level, but we're also a teaching place at the top level. And we try to bring those together. And I think we do a really good job. Not unique that we're the only ones who do it, but I'm very proud of what Northwestern does.
Oh yeah. The summer before I officially was enrolled at Northwestern, I participated in UCARE. It was a continuing umbrella of research education was what it was called at the time. It might still be called that. It's a long time ago. And I was just so surprised that they would let an 18-year-old help with research on glioblastoma at the medical school. So it was a very great experience. And I often reflect back on how little things like that I took for granted were these, they are like core memories for me and kind of my development, as a person and as an intellectual. And then I realized that I don't like lab work. So, like things like that, where we don't think about experiences as ways to learn about the things that we don't like to do. But I just had so many great experiences. And so, when I talk about Northwestern and I reflect back on it, I have a lot of joy associated with it. And I, just think about all of the different opportunities that were afforded to me just by going to a school like Northwestern. And so,
I like that, Robert, because I think about these research opportunities, and throughout my entire career, I've co-authored lots of big time papers with undergrads, including one from not that long ago from Northwestern. It's very heavily cited. And it's going to turn out to be one of the more important papers I ever wrote. It was with an undergrad. So, I usually think of it as sort of an extension of the learning. I think of it as, given that 2/3 of our students end up getting another degree, a law degree, an MBA, a medical school degree, a master's or PhD. And that gives them a leg up because they had a publication. But I hadn't thought that it's a tryout too. You work in the lab and you say, this is how I want to spend my life as a lab researcher, a bench researcher or not. So I hadn't thought about that. So thanks for that perspective. Very interesting.
Cool. Well, I think also about just kind of the wonderful things that our students do, but also our alumni do. And Northwestern's, alumni network is a testament to the impact our graduates make in every kind of job sector across the globe. Can you reflect on how Northwestern supports career paths for undergraduates?
Yeah, so we have about 260,000 worldwide Northwestern alums, and that seems like a lot compared to a liberal arts college, but compared to University of Michigan or school, Ohio State, it's it's a rounding error, but 260,000 all over the world, and I do a lot of international travel, and we always have our alumni events, and I'm struck by how many recent grads are working there who are expats, not natives. And anywhere I go, it's we bring out the purple, and it's really a really fun event. But the networking is extraordinary. I was just out of the country just a week and a half ago, and we did a big alumni event, and everybody's trading business cards and hiring each other, and it really is wonderful. I think that it's not just a 4-year experience. You're making a bet on a lifetime, and wherever you go, people know Northwestern and they want to support Northwestern, and the alumni mentorship is really extraordinary here, and the pride, and I love it because it's all different generations. The other day, there were people who graduated in the late 50s, throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, on and on and on. And some who just graduated last year, all together. How can I help you? What are you doing? Oh, I'll give you an opportunity. Or I work at that company. Yeah, I'm beginning intern. Well, I'm senior vice president. Let's have lunch. It's really nice, but not unique, but something that when you make that lifelong investment to be a wildcat, people are never going to forget that, and they're always going to try to help you.
Absolutely. And I have a lot of good luck, talking with other graduates of Big Ten universities as well. There's like a very kind of like nice pride in being a graduate of a Big Ten university. And so, there's like
I'm glad to hear that, Ryan. I hadn't really thought about that either. We're so much smaller. 8,000 undergrads. I think the second smallest is Nebraska or Iowa, 22,000. Then we have some at 40,000, So it's like we seem so small and we're the only private among, they're great academic institutions, but, it's sort of like, well, we're small and we're private, and they tend to be large and public, albeit great public research universities who do really a very good job with their teaching as well. But I'm glad to hear I'm glad to hear that you feel a kinship with the Michigan and Wisconsin, Urbana-Champaign, and other parts of the Big Ten. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah, just not on game day. Otherwise, everything.
Game day, man, you're out. No, it better not be on game day. But look, a lot of my students end up going to one of those other schools for, graduate degrees, PhDs, or whatever. Michigan is particularly popular spot, for a lot of my students. But the other 12, other than us, so the 14 of us, or I've sent students to probably every one of them. Actually, now that I think about it.
Great institutions, all of them.
They are.
So I guess, one of the things that you did that I remember, I was part of the first class that marched out of the arch. We didn't get to march in through the arch because it wasn't a tradition that was established at the time. But what are some of your favorite Northwestern traditions?
Well, there's a lot of long-standing one. I'll tell you one I did today. I shot a couple of videos today. I told you one was a graduation video, one was a birthday video, but the other one was for the class of 72, because I invited them back to graduation because it's their 50th. And Robert, you probably don't realize this, but we've been doing that since 1910, when the Northwestern class of 1860 came back 50 years later and marched in commencement in the year 1910. So we've been doing that for over 110 years. And that's a great tradition, and so I invited them back. And, of course, they'll all be back in October for homecoming reunions. But that's a tradition to bring them back for graduation so they can march along with the graduates of the year 50 years after they graduated. So, that's a great tradition. We have, I spoke at Dance Marathon, I don't know, a month or so ago. That's a great tradition. You can look it up if you want. I can't wait for Dillo Day. I just spend a day going from stage to stage. It's usually music that's not my favorite, but what is my favorite is watching people have fun, especially in a COVID world where we haven't been able to do it for a while. So I'm looking forward to that. You mentioned March Through the Arch. I'm sorry we didn't have it when you were first year, but it's something that we instituted my first year. I love going to Six Flags. I like going to music. That was another thing we didn't do when we started, but now we do it. And this year I went. We did the sophomores because they had missed it from COVID, plus the first years. And, I didn't go on any roller coasters. Six Flags is, these roller coasters from hell. So I kept thinking I would do it, and then I would watch. And once you watch, you never do it. But I had so much fun going around the park, saying hi and taking pictures with people, as I often do. And, that's a great tradition too. I love that. And then, as you said, we started your year, marched back through the arch. But the gathering on Deering Meadow, the class picture out in the lakefront, there's just old traditions and new traditions. And it's all about community. That's the common denominator.
Yeah, my favorite tradition, because it's so low stakes, is the primal scream. You just scream at 9 p.m. the Sunday before finals week, and like everybody participates because you literally, you don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to do anything, you're just screaming. And it's just to watch everybody participate. It's like, I don't know, it's like surreal in a sort of way. And it was also very scary because I didn't know that's what was happening when I was.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like your partner getting hit in the face with ice. A little scary if you don't expect it. So if you expect it, you participate. Otherwise, you think the world's coming to an end.
Oh, yeah.
But Robert, it does occur to me as we come close. I know we're finishing up soon, but when I preside over reunions and homecoming, and I ask people on their 10th, their 25th, or 50th, whatever the reunion is, and the place is packed, as you can imagine. And I said, why are you back? Why'd you fall in love with Northwestern? And, they talk about, being with their friends and watching the sunrise on the lakefront, or they talk about going to a Cubs game or a White Sox game or the Second City, or they talk about, playing our version of the World Cup soccer, which is intramural, or they talk about, all these other things. They almost never mentioned a class, which as a faculty member, it took me a while to get my arms around, because I would have thought, Robert, like, name the 10 things that you love most about Northwestern. Applied econometric, they do it, Shakespeare, history, whatever, the Vietnam War course in history, whatever it is. But, you have to prod them, tell me about a course. And then they do. But, it's like, the reason they fall in love with it is really the community. You mentioned that before. It's the friends they make. It's the mentors they make. And the classroom experience is really good. But, we only have the students for a couple of hours a day, if that. And most of the education takes place on the playing fields and intramurals and the gospel choir and, the a cappella groups and, all the other things they do in the dorms and throughout Evanston. And that's the memories that, and those are the friends they make for life.
Yeah, I always tell students, when you're picking an institution, we always think about classes and academics, but you only spend a third of your time in college in class and studying. And so we kind of neglect the other 2/3.
Yes.
And it's just like very important to really to think about. And so you talked about this a little bit earlier. I don't know if you wanted to elaborate a little bit more, but you're originally from the East Coast. You spent many years in California. How do your experiences in the Midwest compare? And then, why should folks choose Evanston, Chicago, Lake Michigan, all of those sort of distinctive features?
Well, I like the, I like the physical location, and we talked about that before, and I know you do as well. And Midwestern values mean something. It's not just a public relations campaign. It's just a way of approaching the world. And I really like that. I really do. I really, as I think about the next 2 nights, when I think about the 110 people coming over for Pesach, for the 2 Seders, and I think about a whole bunch of them are undergrads, and they're going to be so excited. Many of them, it's only about 50% Jewish, actually 50% not, and but they'll be rocking it, with their Haggadot and their kippahs, and really into the whole thing, regardless of their faith, and they'll be really happy. And I'll hear from some of their parents, like, oh, thanks for having the kid over. It's a new experience, or it's an old experience but done differently. And it's just like, that's why I teach. Our undergrads are just sensational. They're as smart as any place you'll find them, but humility is sometimes hard to find, but you find it in the Midwest.
Yeah. So last question, and then we'll let you go here.
Sure.
Your favorite professor among our undergrads, what do you love most about teaching Northwestern students?
How much I learned from them, they challenge you in a respectful way, and they just have a different perspective. And, you're always trying to be better in your field as a teacher and as a researcher. And it's just, they're just, my wife knows, even though I've taught 43 consecutive years, I'm always a little nervous the morning of a class. And, when I come back, I'm always like jazz, I have trouble falling asleep. Not the night before, but that night when I teach, because I was like, I have so much adrenaline. I'm like, oh, what a discussion. What a great point. I just get so excited. And a lot of us do at Northwestern. And if you can't get excited about teaching Northwestern undergrads, you shouldn't be teaching anymore. Simple as that.
Yeah, one of my favorite classes I took, we spent half of the class essentially reading the manuscript of a book that he was having published. And we talked about what we were learning from it, but he was writing all of our critiques down. And just to have someone, show that much respect it was maybe 12 of us in the class. It was just like, I was very kind of surprised by it. It's like, we're undergrads, and I guess we were the audience for the book, so it makes some sense in retrospect. But at the time, it was just like, you think very highly of us to actually be taking notes and to be writing down kind of how we feel and what we thought. So yeah, I very much appreciate that about the faculty. Just the mutual respect between the faculty and the students.
Beautifully said, Robert.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, thank you, for taking the time to, answer these questions that students, their parents and families submitted. I appreciate everyone for coming out and watching. To the students, congratulations again. To the parents, congratulations. And, to friends and family as well. Thank you all for joining us, and, congrats on all of the opportunities that you have in front of you. We hope that you choose Northwestern. I just want to remind you all that you can go to admit.northwestern.edu to find kind of any information, about being admitted and different opportunities available to you, throughout the month of April. Check out our YouTube channel for videos. We have some tours on there as well, but campus is open. We do have tours if you want to come and connect with us on campus. And then we have a ton of opportunities for admits to connect with current undergrads. And just lots of other resources available through the website, on campus, and just kind of across. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And again, thank you, President Schapiro, for taking the time to speak with me today, especially since you're so busy. And happy Passover to you.
Thank you, Robert. Do me a favor, call your mom. 2 weeks is too long.
Yes, right away, as soon as I hang up here.
God bless.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.